adult film legend, and I just can't say enough about her, and she's a fellow Jersey girl, Sharon Mitchell. And of course, the luscious Ed Demko.
Yeah.
So how do you like Wasteland so far?
I love it. Am I on?
Okay.
Yep.
I'm having a great time. This is my first Wasteland, and thank you so much, especially to Eric from Hollywood Book and Poster for sponsoring me here. And I'm just having a fucking blast. Thank you for having me. I think the first convention I've done in probably 19 years.
Wow.
I retired from the adult industry in 1996 to continue my education, to be of service to the adult industry, and myself. I was running out of money. I needed. I said, wow, either I got to marry a rich guy or do Granny Does Vegas. So better get an education.
I guess the opening question, what got you into the business to begin with?
I think it was the best way to say fuck you to the Catholic Church and my parents at the same time. I was a very rebellious child, and first I think humor, I liked attention. I was adopted from an orphanage, and I always kind of felt less than. I was always sort of the red-headed stepchild, so to speak, even though my pubic hair really is, well, it's gray now, but it was brown. And I found humor to be a form of attention, and then I discovered sex, and I don't know, it's very odd. I had an agent named Dorothy Palmer. I was working for ABC on a soap opera called The Edge of Night.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Dark Shadows was on after that.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun. Right. Yes. And I was Jinxie's private nurse, and I met a gentleman who played the cop, whose name was Wade Nichols, who was also in adult entertainment, and he and I got chatting one day, and then we were in at a casting call at Dorothy's, and she said, I could make you guys some extra money. But you have to, be naked and like it's a sex movie, but you'd be the star. And we heard, star? They give you the star of a movie, and back then it was 1975, late 1975, early 1976, and the industry was pretty much run by the mafia back then, which was really neat and nice and tidy. There were about 30 of us that worked in the industry. A handful of girls, a handful of guys, you know them well. Vanessa Del Rio, Jamie Gillis, Wade Nichols, John Leslie, all our old buddies. And I'll never forget my first movie. I didn't have to audition for it. I kind of showed up and they asked me to take my clothes off and turn around, and they said, okay, you're hired. And I worked with this gentleman, Bobby Astor, and who was a jazz drummer. It was a great guy. It was just a wonderful guy. And he was laying down, and I was on top of him, and I was fucking him, and the director said, okay, say something dirty. And being the Catholic girl that I was, I really didn't have a lot of vocabulary in my head, so I went, oh baby, come inside me. And they went, cut. What the fuck is this? This is a porn movie. We come outside, not inside. So I was like, oh, okay. Say something dirty. So I said, oh baby, come in my hand. And I hopped off of him and I put out my hand. And he came in my hand. And I lived in New York City on Downing Street at the time. And there was a little park on the corner, and I think to this day the graffiti is still there, Come in My Hand Park. My friends never let me live that down.
Well, here's something, a weird segue. You're a Jersey girl.
I'm a Jersey girl.
Carter Stevens and I went almost to the same high school in the same town, so you think there's something in the water there that breeds people like
I
this?
think so. Carter Stevens took me under his wing and helped me. I worked at his studio on 29th Street, 29th Street, 226 West 29th Street, I remember it. And he had a girlfriend named Renee that had 3 nipples. And that, you know, I mean, it was...
Was that on one breast?
Yes. No. 2 nipples on one and one on the other. Yep, 3 together.
That her kids got
So I had
confused.
quite an introduction to the industry. I mean, you can imagine. I mean, I was with the likes of Gloria Leonard and Vanessa Del Rio, as I mentioned earlier, Marilyn Chambers, Marlena Willoughby, and some other chick who, if anybody can remember this chick, she had long red hair, gigantic red bush, and she used to scream when she would come, like, ah! And you never knew whether you were hurting her or making her come. It was like terrifying, this woman. But I think her name began with an L, Lorraine something, whatever. Anyway, it was just a cornucopia of characters, and I was hooked. I was like, I'm in. This is great. And Marilyn and Gloria and Vanessa took me shopping on St. Mark's Place.
Trash and vaudeville?
Yeah, Trash and Vaudeville. And they said, you look like a kid from Jersey. I'm like, I am a kid from Jersey. Like, you need a haircut. And, you know, you need to get some hip clothes. So it was just great. You know what? It was just a wonderful time in my life. And I met friends that I've had for, you know, upwards of 30 years. The industry had always been very good to me. At that time, the industry, I have to explain something about the industry at that time because it was run by the mob, which is no secret. They owned all the drive-in theaters throughout the United States as well as all the adult movie theaters. And at that time, there was no video. By cracky, you had to actually walk into an actual theater to, you know, see a movie. And so things were very, very creative and very high budget. You got paid very, very well. You didn't have to do anything you didn't want to do. And you could make a list of people you would work with and wouldn't work with. Every once in a while, they try to throw in a new guy or girl, and you know, we'd either go yeah or nay. You know, I think I broke in Jerry Butler.
Sort of turned on the business real quick.
Yeah, well, you know.
He wrote a tell-all book, for those of you who don't know, that was
Yeah.
very flattering to a lot of
And
people.
it was just about Lois Ayres' pussy smelling like the bottom of a bird cage or something. I think it was the only disparaging one, which actually, as much as I love Lois, it was pretty accurate, you know.
No Summer's Eve in that.
Yeah, got one word for it, man.
It was accurate, so, you know. And I think he's a postman now in Queens somewhere.
You were involved in one of probably the most notorious roughies ever made, Taming a Rebecca, which was an Avon film.
Yes.
Everybody out here just loves.
Oh, Taming a Rebecca, awesome. We found this wonderful little girl, and I don't remember if she ever did another movie, the young lady.
Velvet Summers.
Yeah, Velvet,
I
thank
think
you.
she did 2 more.
Yeah, perhaps. But at the time, I was working as a dominatrix. I was working at a place called Belle du Jour, which was a very, very exclusive place for a lot of politicians, movie stars, rock and roll stars, and my neighbor, who had been fucking this beautiful girl named Nadine, you know, said, "Oh, why don't you come to work with me one day?" And I was amazed. I had never seen anything like this. I mean, it was just a gigantic loft. It had, you know, a bag full of feces, you know, with a guy rolling around in it. It had like a throne with, you know, people peeing on somebody. It had the rack, the bastionado. It had every possible, you know, British invention for torture. and Spanish Inquisition. It had the whole cage, you know, the cage, the whole thing. And Belle de Jour, now don't you think of like Barbarella or something? Out walks this little Jewish chick with a lisp in fucking army boots. So, you want to work here, do you? She says, I'm Belle de Jour, nice to meet you. I was like, okay, yeah. She goes, well, you got to go through like a couple weeks of training and you got to get your ass kicked because if you kick somebody's ass, you know, you can't hit him in the kidney or something. You know what I mean? I said, yeah. Which I didn't know what the hell she meant. I said, oh, yes, I understand. So I went through this whole training for 2 weeks of learning how to lace dicks up and pierce nipples and all that goes with the B&D and S&M scene, including speed enemas, wine enemas, coffee enemas. I had an assistant whose name was Nora, who had a dick bigger than she could pole vault across the fucking city. She was she was a tranny, but just gigantically hung. Amazing. Tits and a cock. It was like fabulous. And she was my you know, I was her trainee. And so when I did the movie Taming of Rebecca, I had no problem sticking that safety pin in that girl's nipple. It was fabulous. Velvet's nipple. It was great.
One of the things I was
That was the real deal.
That's, I've heard that. I was curious if it was
Oh, no.
definitely true. But
Oh, yeah.
what was Phil Prince like?
Fucking lunatic. Phil Prince was, you have to remember, this was now the late 70s, and we were getting pure cocaine from, you know, Bolivia and Peru, and Phil just loved to get jacked up, you know, so he would be very expressive, and he'd go, yeah, anything goes, and, you know, we were rather ill-experienced, so we were just, okay, whatever you say, you know. So I stuck a gigantic safety pin through her nipple, and other parts of her body, I think, at some point. Maybe off camera.
Just out of curiosity, what was the reaction like to that movie, for example, even from fans or just from other people in the business, to you or, you know?
I think people were a little shocked, but I was always up for the new and different. You know, I was always the one that, you know, Mikey will eat it, you know what I mean? You know, you know, Mitch will do it, she'll do it, and so long as it wasn't, there were a couple things that were sacred. My good lingerie, champagne, and my asshole. I never did anal sex for some reason. I just figured I had to save something for somebody just in case there was going to be a special moment in my life. So I never did anything I didn't want to do, but that was a little bit, you know, it was a little bit shocking. But then you have to remember that, you know, we were going to S&M clubs at night. There was Plato's Retreat that was going on, and they had hired Joanna Storm and I every Saturday night to do performances there. And we were like, you know, we were like switchblades out and like cut each other's clothes off, and you know, I mean, everything was nasty. It was raw. It was real. It was the real deal back then, and it was a privilege to be part of the real deal. Just cut to just the last few years. It's been odd coming from such an artistic place with such artistic people, and portraying and rehearsing and doing all of the great artistic stuff that we used to do, because we were all in rock and roll bands. A lot of us were artists and things like that. When it graduated to the choking and spitting and vomiting stuff, a lot of us from the old days were like, this is just not good.
Where does it go from here?
Well, short of driving a train up someone's ass, I honestly, I don't know. I really don't know, because, and the thing is that back then, you know, people ask you, what would you want to do? How much would you like to get paid? So you would say, well, I'd like to get paid $2,000 a day, regardless whether I have sex or not. Because back then, because they were cutting the movies into drive-in, it was almost like the cable version, you know, sort of back then. So we were able to charge, you know, $2,000 a day, whether we were having sex or not. And it took between 2 and 3 weeks to shoot a movie. I mean, Captain Lust and all of that. I mean, this is like, they rented the replicas of the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, you know, from the...
Well, at one time, adult films had a script.
Oh, no, and a large script, and the better you acted, the more work you got.
Exactly, that's what I'm doing.
And there was also a plethora of beauty back then, which somehow became stamped into some goofy Barbie doll thing. But back then, I mean, you had all colors, all kinds, all shapes, all sizes of people.
Yeah, but you also had, there was a big difference between the East and the West Coast, because all the stuff that was shot on the East Coast was darker. I mean, you're a brunette, Vanessa's got dark hair, Samantha Fox, the whole bit. It was like, you know, and New York was a pretty dangerous place back then, too, around Times Square and stuff like that, as opposed to the stuff that was shot on the West Coast with the bubbly blondes, everything's nice in the sun and shit, you know? So there was a big difference between the films back then and, you know.
Yeah, there was. There was what some people call the golden age, you know, when it moved to California and they were still shooting film style when video had just come out. But that's when it kind of exploded, and that's when it came into a lot of directors and producers that really weren't artistic.
Right.
They were just in it for, you know, something or another, and then the casting couches and all that kind of stuff, which I used to tell girls, you know, don't fuck for the job. That is the job, for Christ's sake. The fuck is the matter with you?
Yeah, do that for money.
Yeah.
Well, I know when we first talked, when the line was about the show, you hadn't done one of these, and we were talking, and I said, well, you know, we like the golden age, and I think I told you, I said, well, we always celebrate our adult stars when women were shaped like women.
Yeah.
Meaning they had different shapes, and I just remember you letting out a laugh, going, you know, I understand what you mean too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now they're all Barbie
It's all
dolls.
cookie cutter.
Can't tell
Vanessa
them
Del
No,
Rio said
I-
it best. It's all cookie cutter blondes.
No, it
Ka-chunk,
is.
ka-chunk, ka-chunk
It
tattoo.
is.
Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk.
But they go, and then they, you know, thanks to breast enhancements, this and that, they all look exactly the same. They all look,
No,
you know,
they do.
it's like they're all made out of ticky tack, and they all look just the same.
If I remember right, I
Yeah,
think,
and you know what? The fingernail thing is what really gets me. It's like the lipstick dye thing is one thing, but how do they fuck with those fingernails? I mean, my God, I don't want those fingernails inside me. I mean, you might lose one, for God's sake. It'll take forever to fish that thing out, you know? Seriously, I mean, those girls have nails this long. Are they really into women? I don't know.
I remember there was the
Not with
first,
fingernails like that. I'm sorry, girls. You know what I mean.
there was a feature-length tranny film that they ran in New York that you were in. I think it was called Sulka's
Sulka's Wedding.
Yeah.
Best movie ever. Great story about the set of Sulka's Wedding. It's me, Ron Jeremy, Sulka, who is just a terrific transsexual, transgender, and I was good friends with her doctor, and then I kind of became sort of an aftercare apartment for a lot of the trannies that went through the operation. And but we were on the set, and we were having a great time, and we had this big picnic, you know, the wedding scene, the big picnic wedding scene, and we were shooting. This was a West Coast shot film, and you have to remember that we couldn't shoot in Los Angeles because the motion picture industry didn't want us to, you know, make more money than they did, so they wouldn't give us permits. So we would all kind of, convene somewhere, and we take PSA Airlines, which of course we nicknamed Porn Star Airlines, you know. And we would go way up to, up north of San Francisco. As an aside, we always used to fuck the receptionist at the Howard Johnson's in Nevada. Lily, her name was. God bless Lily, she was just fabulous. But regardless, anyway, we were doing this movie, Sulka's Wedding, and it was on a horse farm. And they had this big white wedding cake, you know, and all the food around it. And some of it was prop food, and Ronnie will eat anything, as we all know. Okay? And the horse comes up, and somebody was fucking. I don't remember whose scene it was, but we were all, and it was probably Sulka and somebody, I don't know. And the horse which was a stud, comes up and just as if on cue, just fucking comes on top of the wedding cake. It's just dripping with this fucking horse cum, and it's just like, it was just fabulous. It was just one of the more memorable moments of my career. You know?
The weird thing is, I got roped into seeing that in the theater because, you know, I used to do like a fifth of tequila a night at one point back in the 70s, so I could get talked into seeing anything. And I was sitting there, I don't know what the most disturbing thing was either her getting fucked or Ron Jeremy sucking his own cock. I don't know what scarred me worse.
Well, you know, Ronnie, here's the funny thing about Ronnie. Ronnie and I have been friends for a long, long time. We were friends since we met in 1975 when he was still teaching math in Brooklyn. He was a math teacher. And he wanted in the industry so bad, but for some reason, I don't know why he gave people the creeps off the bat. I don't know why. And they wouldn't hire him. And he was a relatively, young, attractive man at the time. Kind of looked like a little young werewolf. If you ever seen those old pictures with, with the 70s, hair and everything, he was cute. But he couldn't get hired. And there was, we used to shoot what were called loops back then, which they, people would walk in and put, there we go. So, on Saturday afternoons, it would be me and Jamie and Annie and Suzanne McBain and a couple of people, and we'd go, there were a couple of people, Peter and Iris mainly, and Leonard Kirkman. They were the two main loop shooters in the city. Would make extra money. I mean, it was like $500 a loop, and they took like maybe 40 minutes to shoot. It was like real-time sax, so we'll just go get laid. They always had a great spread. They always had a great spread of food. So, and Ronnie would be like, if no one can get it up, I'll be the stand tech. I'll be the stunt tech. I'll be the stunt tech. And that's how he started getting hired. Because somebody drank too much the night before, and Ronnie was like, I'm ready, I'll do it. And then when everyone saw what a big dick he had, and then he could keep it up, and then he had stamina, that was the birth of his career from those loops. And then little by little he became a star, and he quit his illustrious teaching career and became Ron Jeremy. And since then, I have to say, he's been one of the dearest, most kind, respectful, wonderful people that are dear to my heart. And always very generous with any endeavor that I worked with. Always donated money to the clinic. Just fucking sweetheart. I love him. I do.
And you got a bunch of stuff written down in front of you that's probably perfect.
The one movie I wanted to ask you about, because I think it has a following at Wasteland especially, and it's become kind of a cult hit of its own, is the movie Water Power.
Water Power rocked. And I'll tell you why we love this movie, because number one, it was based on an actual story. Forgive me, I get weepy. I'm fucking old. I'm just like, old, weepy, emotional old bag. But Water Power was an original story about a man who was the enema bandit.
Didn't Frank Zappa do a song about that?
Yes, exactly.
Illinois enema bandit.
Actually, Frank wanted to do the soundtrack for it, but I don't remember what record company he was working for. They wouldn't allow him to.
It was Verve MGM, I think.
And they wouldn't allow him to do it because it was an adult film. But Jamie is like the perfect bandit. Jamie was the dark-eyed, he could play the bandit like no one. And you have to remember that we all were also doing, Rob Everett and John Leslie and Joey. We were all doing summer stock. We were all doing off-Broadway. Some of us did some stuff on Broadway. Freddie Lincoln was directing stuff on Broadway. And so we were all, it was like, Warren was really kind of coming of age. And I'll get back to that later, but we were all real actors, is I think the point I'm trying to make, is that we really got into these.
Jamie was quite a good actor.
We really got into these characters, very, very much so. And we rehearsed, and we had, lighting and dress rehearsals and the whole thing. And Water Power was just classic, because my girlfriend, Long Jean Silver, who, I don't know if anybody remembers her.
Oh yeah, I tried to her on Facebook.
We actually talked to her.
Actually, I'm in contact with her. I'm trying to interrupt
Whoever
her.
amputated her leg that made it look like a gigantic dick was like my best friend, because she was my roommate for a while, and it was just fabulous. But she was in the movie, and Marlena Willoughby. And my favorite line from the movie is, because Marlena Willoughby always played like the Joan Crawford type, because she was so tall and thin. And she had that hanky with the lily, and she's pushing Long Jean Silver in a wheelchair. And Long Jean Silver says, "Nurse, I'm not sure if I need an enema." And Marlene says, "Yes, you do, dear. We all do." It's like the best line in the movie, but it just became so controversial. I think the only other controversial movie I did other than that was something called The Nun's Bad Habit, which has since been very buried. If anybody can ever find a copy of it, please contact me, because it was not a loop, but a short. It was about 30 minutes long, maybe 35 minutes long, and I played a nun praying over a candle, right? Oh, oh, all the ethereal music, the whole deal. And then the candle, of course, turns into a dildo candle, which is on fire, which of course then turns into, of all people, Herschel Savage, who was like the only Jew in the industry at the time. His big circumcised dick, and he's got these gigantic wings. So I'm trying to suck his dick on an altar, and he's trying to balance these gigantic wings. It was fabulous. The thing about that movie is that it opened, they thought it was going to be like a really big hit because it was so controversial, and they opened it in Boston, and there were actually people, there was literally stones, throwing stones at us. Like BC.
We cast out the first
Yeah,
one.
Sort of like our Muslim buddies, you know?
Yeah, it was bizarre. And, so that made me, that just made me have an appetite for doing the industry even more.
Somebody I actually wanted to ask you about, because I think there's nobody like him, especially whenever you watch his movies, and you had the opportunity to work with him a couple times, was your impressions on Jerry Damiano.
Oh, Gerard Damiano. I worked with Gerard Damiano for many times. Gerard Damiano he was wonderful, he was gentle, but he was extraordinarily creative. His roots started out as a hairdresser, but he was one of the best directors I ever worked with. Every nuance. We had lots of rehearsals with wardrobe and lighting. Every little thing had to be just so. He didn't direct the sets, because any good director knows. If you tell someone how to suck cock, that's just not a good thing to do. But he would just set everything up so perfectly where you would look so beautiful. And the great thing about it was he had such tragic shit. I mean, we all died in the end. Somebody died in the end, or, these were plots where, I remember I did a movie where Jamie played a post-traumatic stress war victim, and he killed me, and we had these big stunts, and I remember it was my first big stunt, and I had to dive into a pool which had all kinds of live lights in it, and the stunt people were like, now make sure you unhook your foot from that plug before you fall in the pool. And it was like, and you have to react to the shot, and there's a squib in you at the same time, and I was like, oh my gosh. But he was just so artistic and so wonderful and so tragic. Just the tragedy and the drama, and the Night Hunger was one of my favorite films I did with him. He was just the best. He was the original. I mean, who's better than Gerard Damiano?
Nobody, actually. He was one of the best in the business.
He was the real deal.
Did you ever work any of the clubs in New York, like Show World and the Melody?
I did. My first gig was with in the Melody Burlesque, and I was privileged to I never started as a go-go girl or anything. I was also a professional dancer, so I toured with the Martha Graham Dance Road Company as a modern dancer for a couple of years. And when I went to go strip, right, they said, okay, you're going to feature under this lady named Tempest Storm. And I was like, oh my God. She fucked Elvis Presley, and she's got her own band. I mean, she still had the little bongos and, all that stuff. And she did this bump and grind and this whole seductive thing. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know if I can do that, And I tried, and it was really awkward. I did one show. I was her co-feature. And she said, God bless her. She said, come here, kid, She said, you're not really a stripper, are you? And I go, no, I'm a modern ballerina. She goes, it's okay as long as we have this many pieces of clothing, and this is how many times, and this is You use the music that you like. You don't have to use the music that I like. You can use modern music so long as you tease and do the art of striptease. And she actually taught me about the art of striptease. And I mean, back then, you had 21 pieces of stuff. I mean, you had a choker, you had a bra, you had pasties, you had a jock, a G-string, typically sometimes a garter belt, stockings, gloves, shoes or boots, and then when you got down to a certain point in your show, there would be what was called a prop, and you would put on what was called a duster, which was a very a large round silk piece of material, which you had to learn how to move in certain ways, and you would do this whole part of the show, and just at the very end, she told me, just no more than 90 seconds do you ever show your pussy, because it's all about the way you take things off. It's really not about your pussy. It's about people watching the way that you seduce them, that they come to see. And she explained to me the art of striptease, and it was quite an honor to be deflowered by Tempest Storm. I also had the privilege of working with Sally Rand, who was the originator of the fan dance. And the fan dance is where they have the big ostrich feathers, and you have one ring for each feather on, and the idea is that you take off all of your clothing, but you also use the fans to disguise, the feathers, pardon me, to disguise your body. So I mean, I kind of got in right on the tail end of the real shit, and I was pleased to. And the sad thing was, they both told me, we really hate to see this go to the porn stars. We know that you're the next deal, and we know you're going to fucking ruin it.
Burlesque is actually making a lot of big comeback lately.
It is. It
all
is.
over Cleveland has their own burlesque troupe, and
but
you mentioned a lot of girls. I used to write the dancers and have plenty of autographs in my youth because they were a dying breed. So Tempest Storm,
absolutely,
Blaze Starr, Lily St. Cyr. I have
St.
autographs
Cyr
from all of them.
Tavisita San Juan, all those girls. I mean, they kind of really taught me how to.
Well, I grew up with loops. Your dad always knew you was watching his porn because when he watched it, it went backwards. Because we were too young, we weren't about to rewind the shit. We just put it in the next one.
I rewound my shit. I wasn't gonna get caught.
Be kind, rewind.
Hell with it. All you got was rewind.
For those of you who don't know, the Melody Burlesque was the Class A strip joint in Manhattan. Other than the Roxy, which you both know I got kicked out of for life, so that's, you'll heard that story, so we won't go back to there, but I used to do fucked up shit. So.
I'd like to hear that story. I remember Al Cronish was managing at the place, and he said, what do you want to call yourself? I said, Chandelier. He said, Chandelier? What the fuck? He goes, that's no kind of name. He said, didn't you just do a movie under Sharon Mitchell? And I chose the name Mitchell because it was during Watergate, and I liked Martha Mitchell because she had such a big mouth, and I thought, and I was a feminist. And he said, why don't you just use the name you did movies under? He goes, that's kind of going to make sense. I was like, okay. I was really young. I was like, okay. So that's how I started, and that was my first gig at the Melody. And then, of course, I don't think I ever did a gig at the Roxy, though.
It was a shithole. Hardly anybody worked there. I mean, Showroom was usually the place people wound up.
I wound up at Showworld on the 3rd floor. In fact, I got busted there one night. Showworld was like the epicenter of dirt. It was fabulous.
It was in Screw Magazine. It was called The Cutting Edge of the Masturbatory Arts.
Awesome. It was great. I mean, you walked in on the ground floor, and there were all the peep show girls, right? Or on the ground floor. And then if you went down, there was all the trannies, right?
Yeah.
And then I think the 2nd floor were the boys, and the 3rd floor was
Triple Threat Theater.
the triple treat, whatever the fuck. Anyway. And it was it was porn, live sex shows, and Joey Silvera used to do a tremendous amount of the live shows, and then we would come out and do S&M or whatever, and my girlfriend Ming Toy and I, you know, we did a lot of shows up there, and I remember one time I'm on stage and I was doing like this rootin' tootin' cowboy act, and I had my cowboy boots on, and I remember I found a pair of Roy Rogers chaps at Trash and Vaudeville, and they had to be for a kid, but they fit me perfectly from here to here. So I had a bra on, I had holsters, and I had those snap things and a whip, and I was throwing lollipops out, and I was dancing, and I had gotten down to my garter belt, my bra, and my panties, and all of a sudden I heard my DJ say, "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be all, thank you very much." And the audience started throwing shit at me. It's New York, like, "What the fuck, there's a pussy," you know, they're freaking out. And I'm like going, okay, what's going on? And then I see that there's detectives lying in the back of the stage. And they had just, taken it, and they said, "Okay, you want to take a ride downtown?" I said, "Nope, I got another show at 10 p.m. They're like, "Well, then you better get dressed." I'm like, "Yep, I'm dressed." And I go, "I don't have to go anywhere." And they said, "Oh, no, you're arrested for obscenity and blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Oh, really?" Now, I didn't have my panties on. So I played kind of a dirty trick, which I got in trouble for. They didn't know what sex I was. And there were a lot of trannies. They arrested everybody from the trannies all the way out, from the trannies, the fags, the peep show girls. They hauled all of us in.
That was when A-Beam was mayor, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because they made that whole deal about the sprinkler system. They came down with 40 cops.
Exactly
Came down
right.
with 40 cops to bust them for a sprinkler violation.
Yeah, and they hauled everybody away. I mean, they hauled everybody away. And my dad was a cop. So I'm like, oh, fuck, he's gonna kill me. So I go in there like, "Okay, what's your name?" And I go, "I'm not telling you." I said, "My name's Mitch." And they said, "Well, what's your sex?" I said, "I'm not telling you. You haven't seen what my sex is. I'm not telling you." And they said, "Well, so they threw me in the tranny slammer at the Tombs. And they said, "Sooner or later you're going to have to pee, and we're going to see just where you go." Now, little did anyone know, I can pee standing up, and I can still dot the I in Mitch. So I said, fine, So the trannies are teaching me how to make like blue eye makeup out of fucking matches, and I'm having a grand old time. And I have to pee, so they're waiting to see which bathroom I go in. So I go into the men's room, and I pee in a urinal. And they still didn't know. So I go to court, and I happen to have a large birthmark. Well, they didn't know I had a large birthmark and a penis or a pussy or a vagina or whatever. They had or both, or what, they had no idea. So I just was not going to have anyone call me obscene, because I'm an artist and I was entertaining people. And I was just going to fuck with them as long as I could, and I was going to fight, and I was going to win, and I won the case because the cop never saw my genitals. I had since been involved in a couple other busts, basically defending the Free Speech Coalition and things like that with Bill Margold and so on and so forth, and I fought and won each case because my definition of obscenity is clearly not taking your clothes off, fucking, or doing anything that you have no problem doing. I mean, the level of poverty and, unemployment in this country right now, and, the rape of the pharmaceutical companies, this to me is obscene. But me, taking my fucking drawers off, it's not going to follow me around for the rest of my life. No fucking way.
Well, they call it a free country, and they send your children to die in the name of it, but then what's free about hauling you in doing something that you're not hurting anybody?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, and they wanted to change the age of being able to work in porn. Yeah, you can send your kid out to take a fucking bullet, but you can't give a blowjob at 18?
Yeah, or buy a drink.
What the fuck is that?
You can't go buy yourself a drink.
That's craziness to me. But regardless, I just think that I've been privileged to be sort of in the last wave of a very artistic, erotic era. And it's just been a privilege to entertain everyone, and go to school and then give back to the industry a little bit that I did for 13 years, which was nice, but I still got in the government's way. I mean, the government still has a hard-on for this industry. Don't kid yourself. They do.
Probably because of the old mob ties too, which, you know, Mayo went away.
No, I think it's the religious right.
They got that too.
Don't never underestimate a few really loudmouth assholes, because
Yeah, we know about
they
that.
don't have
It
a
only
life.
takes a couple with a bunch of dough.
With no life. The less life you have, the more life you have to interfere with everyone else's life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that Vanessa sued Joel?
No, I did not.
Yeah, she, remember the water fountain? I think it was on the second
Oh,
floor.
yeah.
She slipped on it because it was leaking. And
That fucking thing had been leaking for
yeah, I know.
years.
Well, she sprained her ankle. And she went up in the elevator.
Did she?
Yeah, she went up in the elevator with DB. Remember DB?
Yeah.
Okay. And he's like, Vanessa, how can we make this go away? She goes, oh no, I'm taking you to court. And then she's laughing. She's telling me, goes, I sued the mob and I won. And what happened to DB?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sammy the
Yeah.
Bull took him
Yeah.
around.
Oh,
so,
you're right. He's still, he's pushing daisies.
Yeah. And, well, he was a nice guy too.
He was a very sweet guy.
He used to come in the Liquidator. Oh, there's another thing. Our paths actually almost crossed because Sharon used to go to Liquidators a couple times.
I got busted once for sitting on the naked on the lions outside of the New York.
Library.
The somebody dared me to do it. It was Richard Kunis, I think. Dick Kunis.
Okay.
And he had a cable show, and he also
He had
had
that big video store.
yeah,
right?
the video store was right there. And he fucking promised me that he would have a car waiting for me if I did that. And the car waiting for me was the police car. And there's my pussy's freezing. I'm on this fucking ice cold fucking lion, stark naked, you know, being filmed. And I was like, where's
that
the
for a
car? He
film
bailed me
or
out, but I was like, where's the car? I was like, what's the traffic? I'm like, you son of a bitch.
You know, I could have took a cab.
I could have ran. Yeah, but the cops got me. I was just, but I was having just too much fun getting off on sitting on one of the lions in the New York Library, which is a national landmark. I mean, my pussy stage is still on there. It's all good with me.
Something I actually wanted to ask you about, because I know it was one of the first things that you have ever done, and I imagine in the adult world it's actually really difficult to do comedy, but in the film Joy, what was that like as an experience to do comedic acting as far as a porn movie goes?
That was one of my first. That was one of my first movies, and that was a lot of rehearsal. That I had to audition for that movie twice before I got it, and I learned a lot about deadpan. One of my friends was Rodney Dangerfield at Dangerfield's, and the only reason I went to him was because he used to hire me as a laugher, because you know
Sat and laughed.
I sat and laughed, and I got paid for it, $30 a night, and hey, you know, I bought cat food and cigarettes, and it was all good with me. And I went to him, and I was like, "What's deadpan?" I didn't even know what it meant. I was like, "Geez, that sounds terrible." And he was like, "No, that means when somebody says a line, you just hold and hold and hold, 2 beats for the delivery, and where to put my eyes, and so on and so forth." And it was fun, you know. Everything was a learning experience. The biggest kick I got out of doing the movie Joy was they actually closed off an entire wing of Newark Airport for us to do a sex scene. And they closed off a whole section of Wall Street. And we actually shot in a subway, in an actual moving subway, and a subway graveyard. And I mean, back then, you know, porn was art, and everybody was really interested in being involved in it, including the mayors that gave permits.
Who was Holly Mansfield?
Fuck.
You had to pick a hard one, goddamn.
Balls of fire. You're gonna have to give me, you know, it's gonna have to give me like probably an hour and 10 minutes.
So come back then.
Harley Mansfield. Fuck me. Harley Mansfield.
Brain twister. How about Al Goldstein? You ever run into him? Everybody ran into Al.
Well, of course. I mean, I mean, Screw Magazine. I mean, it was great. And Al was wonderful. And he was always at Plato's Retreat hanging out.
The other night we were talking when we came in. You got in late. We were having a few drinks, and we kind of gravitated right to John Holmes stories. And you haven't told a single one of them, but you told a hilarious one about, him just stealing from the girls on the set.
Well, John Holmes had a
Tell it to
penchant.
the audience.
Had a penchant for giving girls, the actresses, jewelry. The only problem was he stole it from one of the actresses and gave it to the other. So, which we all knew, which we all kind of caught on to after a while. But the problem with John was not so much that, it was that we used to shoot, as I said, up in Novato, Northern California, in these locations, in these big mansions. And he would always pick like the little girls' room or the kids, the boys' bunk bedrooms. And he would huddle himself in and smoke crack for hours and hours and hours. So by the time his shoot would come up, we'd all be like, okay, let's get a posse and let's all spread out. Let's look for John, and eventually we'd find him in a closet somewhere, and he'd be like, what? Oh, I'm ready to go. Let's go. But he used to call everyone darling, and he used to love women, and he was very, very sweet. And I had a charm bracelet that I really, really dug, and all of a sudden it's missing. And then one of the newer girls goes, oh, look what John gave me. Isn't this lovely? And it was just like, and then it started. He would steal from one girl and then give it to the next girl. And I think I got my charm bracelet back 3.5 years later from Veronica Hart, because it had been stolen from whoever they had. It just kind of made its way around, But John was great, and I often say it's like fucking a big squishy sponge, because he would have fainted, because all the blood would have been in his dick and not in his head. But John was a sweetheart, and he was what he was. He was John, If nothing else, we're all individuals, and I think we all were either chosen or gravitated toward this business for a reason, and we all seem to get along very well. And a little bit different in the last, I'd say, 15 or 16 years. Back then, we did what we wanted to do. We had the privilege of being artists. We were all doing all kinds of art, and it was just a really, I still have friends today that I've had for 30 years that I met back then. And it's just been a privilege to be in this industry, and it's been a privilege to serve the industry after I left. So I'm a lucky girl.
Like I always said, the big difference between then and now is people knew how to act back then. It was like, credible storylines, credible plots, and some not so credible storylines and not so credible plots. But the weird thing is, it just turned around right now. It's a loop business again, because all it is like buying DVDs with, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, That's all it is.
And the bad thing is that the sex is much more risky. There's a lot more at stake, disease-wise, and a lot of people are doing it for the fame rather than the experience.
Right. You've devoted a lot of your life to helping those people, the people with addictions, the people with trouble, AIDS victims. And awareness is a big hurdle in this.
Yeah, but denial is like the backbone of pornography. I mean, it was just like, when I closed the AIM facilities a year and a half ago, it was the biggest heartbreak, because the government was just leaning on me. They thought I had some secret database. I had someone with, a very gigantic AIDS foundation that just had more money than God, that was just leaning down on me and creating all kinds of false information. And it was very, very, very difficult. But what was even more difficult is that the industry was I felt like I was throwing myself on grenades constantly, and I wasn't getting enough support from the industry itself. It had, I guess the publishing aspect of it had gone down so far because of the internet.
Yeah, nobody was...
There was not, a lot of the big companies that I depended on were not funding anymore, they were afraid that if they put large donations into healthcare, albeit that I was running a nonprofit, that they would actually be responsible for the talent's health, which they fucking should. But it just became a very, very difficult situation. And the nature of the industry, as you say, really changed. I mean, it actually kind of got worse than
It got really, really mean-spirited.
It got mean-spirited. We're talking choking and spitting, and a lot of these girls, they just wanted, you know, well, if I do enough of this and I don't charge that much, I'll get on the cover of this magazine, or I might win an award here, and then I can do this. But just, you know.
But now we live in an era of you know, YouTube fame. So, and that's like, you know, let's kill ourselves for absolutely free while my buddy tapes it. That's where we live now. Everybody thinks they're going to be a reality
It's complete stupid. I remember there was a clip I saw of you when Max Hardcore walked into your clinic, and it looked like somebody, from the expression on your face, it looked like somebody sprayed with shit mist.
Yeah, but you know what? The odd thing is that Max was turned out to be a great supporter of the clinic. I convinced him to have every girl that worked in his movies come into the clinic, and I sat there personally and made sure that they watched his last movie. And he was very open and forthcoming about it. Because I was afraid, personally, I was afraid that he was sort of, for lack of a better word, cold cocking them. You know, I was afraid that these girls were walking in and they weren't going to know that
they were being told one thing and having to do another thing.
Exactly. So I had convinced him that this was the best way to do it, and he listened, and he became a very big supporter eventually. So, you know, I think you know, just keep an open mind and stay the course, and whatever. Just try to follow the path. I just got in the government's way, and they were sure that I had some crazy database, and they just kept at me, and I kept going to court for 3 years, and I kept winning the cases, but with the industry not supporting me because they were afraid that they were going to have to take responsibility, I couldn't do it anymore. And the pressure on me and my staff it was staggering, not to mention the expense. And
yeah, and it's heartbreaking when you try to help.
Oh my God,
and what
I cried for a fucking year. I mean, I
you know,
literally just came out of the closet like 6 months ago. I mean, I literally headed for the Redwoods, and I cried for a year. I mean, it really kicked
me and Pete I gave my chair up to Ed this time around, but it's usually me and Pete there. And we've had several adult stars, male and female here, and we've sat and talked, and we go, you know, I hope we've changed in the audience, especially some younger people. I hope we've changed the perception with the guests we've had, you know, between us up here, because people don't, a lot of people just don't see adult entertainers as people, and that's so fucking wrong, you know, and on so many levels. So we've actually had this discussion. Man, what a great talk. I hope we changed somebody's mind. I hope somebody was sitting here who needed their mind changed. And I think you just did a great, wonderful fucking job of that tonight. And we have gone about an hour, so if people would like to wrap up, honestly, I don't think we could wrap up on a better note than right now, that Sharon has lived more lives than most of us in this room. And, you know, her help and her carrying on of the industry is just so, I don't know, I guess it's so common for the people we've had on the stage. And I would like to personally thank you for coming here and being a part of this and telling people, you know, your story, not being afraid to get emotional.
Before we do wrap up, I'd like to ask, what's next in Sharon Mitchell?
I'm going to just kind of take it easy. I'm probably going to do some private practice, and I've been accepted as a docent in the Monterey Aquarium. I'm going to work with fish for a minute.
I can certainly say if you come back, we should get you a masseuse table, because
I am a really great masseuse, and I have the guns.
And I honestly think, you know, for all you've done, all you've been through, you're like, you know, trials and tribulations. Like I said, we both came out of Jersey, we both went up in Manhattan. You went a lot, you know, I was never really in the industry, I was a hustler. I bought and sold anything I could get my hands on, but you went out to California, you did a lot of stuff, and maybe it's time to sit down and write that book.
Yeah, I'm in the process. I've got an offer. I've had a couple offers, but it seems that when the movie part of the book and movie deal, Hollywood always wants to twist it just a little bit, and I'm like, wait, that's not how it happened. It's the more truthful it is, the more interesting it is. Let me tell the fucking truth.
Not
People deserve to hear the truth, and it's not, you know.
The truth is more interesting. You need an independent company.
Are we out of time, or what?
We are out
Oh,
of
we
time.
are
We've
out
gone
of
an
time?
hour.
Thank you so much. It's been a
And real quick, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen,
you.
one of the most important people in the
True
Atlantic.
legend in the business is True Green Beans. Sharon Mitchell, Sharon Mitchell. Want a photo? You guys want a photo?
Yeah, please, everyone.
Wait, let me at least.
Oh my God, she made me cry.
Somebody throw a tissue up here, goddamn.
Shows you're real.
One more round of applause before we go. Back to my table and buy some shit.